that mutton down, madam. It's our feature presentation, an interview with Lee Gregory. How old are you? I mean, what was your first memory of Star Wars?
I'm a first generation lad. Yeah, I was born in April '74.
Good.
So my two earliest memories is one, Man United winning the FA Cup in 1977, and the second one revolved Star Wars, and both had never left me ever since. Really, my earliest memory of Star Wars was watching an advert on TV. So it came out in '78. I think around Christmas time, it was on an advert, and I thought, this looks pretty good, this. I liked it. What a big walking, ape talking to his mate in growls. That looked really, really cool. And my mum, she said, listen, we're going to watch that. So I was about 3, 4, and I've still got this really vivid memory, and I'm pretty certain it was the scene, That's No Moon. It's a space station scene where they're in the cockpit and they're flying towards the Death Star. So I'm pretty certain that was the scene. And then, we went to see it. And I remember this really well. I went to see it in the Odeon in Manchester. And my first memory of that incident, really, was Vader coming out. And he walks out. And I just burst into tears. I just wanted to go home. This was the worst day of my life. This huge, thing, growling, breathing, came out off the screen, and I was in bits and begging my mum to, take me home and please take me home. And thankfully, she says, no, we're staying. We couldn't get anyway. The theatre was packed, and there was a guy next to me smoking. I remember that really clearly as well. But
the happy days of your lungs filling up with smoke.
Yeah, you got me. I'm asthmatic. Maybe there's a link to this as well.
Yeah.
It came from these smoky theatres. But at the end of the film, that was it. This was the greatest day of my life. I don't know if you know Manchester. We've got a building called Central Library, which is a huge, rotunda, big, round building. And I was running around that at the end, my arms outstretched. That was a Death Star. I was in my X-Wing, just running around it for fun. This is brilliant. And, I've never looked back since. And that was also my first taste of KFC as well.
I was surprised it was going there. I had no recollection of KFC for years.
As a child, it was a massive sensory overload that night. There was just no going back after that. As soon as I came out of that was it. There was just one obsession in my life over Man United, and it was Star Wars. And here we are, 44 years later, and I'm still banging on about it, I suppose. And I think that's.
Have you ever gone back to see? Have you ever gone back to see exactly when that film was out? Because someone did some research on this in my hometown and found out that it was April of 1978 that Star Wars came to my town. And
an April birthday, so that might have been a birthday treat round there. I wouldn't know. I mean, I probably could look at listings from the the archives at that library I just mentioned there. There might be a chance of doing that. But certainly that was I was one of the first, I think, in my class to see it. Anyway, I remember going back to school the next day and just this is my nonsense 4-year-old speak saying this is brilliant. And not long after that, everyone was on it, and it was just that generational moment in time where a bit like a JFK moment. You're never going to forget that thing when you first see it.
So many of us have got the same experience, haven't we? I think for our generation, there'd just been nothing like that on screen before, and it just blew us all away.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, the only experience before that was being taken to see Pete's Dragon. I don't know if you remember that one.
Yeah. I did, yeah.
An absolutely terrible film. But I don't know, you think it differently, but that's certainly sticking in my head. And if I ever did, it was for the wrong reasons. Star Wars was it. That was it. And after that, it was a T-shirt was bought pretty soon afterwards. And again, get onto the collecting bit, I suppose. My memories of that, I've got some really clear, vivid memories of this as well. It's probably a bit weird. I can remember it obviously in sort of detail, but I'm probably not the only person who can. Zodiac Toys, which is long gone and missed off the high street, in Salford, on the Salford precinct. I begged my nana to take me down there and hunting for these toys that I'd seen in school. Some kids had I think R2-D2 made an appearance in some lads' little tray in school. So clearly, I had to get one of these. But I only knew them as Star Wars models. That was it, Star Wars models. So my nana took me down there, and she was saying to the woman, "Do you sell Star Wars models?" And the woman was looking a bit weird at me. So she pointed us to this the shelf, and I think it must have been them. Johnny, the NPC model kits.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, them, and they're really cool. I really like them, but that wasn't what I wanted. Clearly, that was not what I wanted to see, and I was getting probably a bit tearful at not seeing not getting what I wanted. But then I spied them. There they were, kind of hanging, on the pegs, and all that was left was a rack of Ben Kenobis and Princess Leia's. But it didn't bother me at all. I had two of these, desirable objects that would like give you that instant kudos in the classroom, and that was the start of collecting really. And the Princess Leia is a bit of a funny story here, but she survived all the way through. I've still got her now, and she actually made it onto my wedding cake. She made it on stuffing.
Did your wife not inquire? What is this? Who's this other woman?
She had no idea when we met just how stupid this devotion to this this film was. And as time went on, she realised he's actually all right, but he's a bit weird with his collecting toys. So she let me have it. She let me get away with it. So yeah, we had small head Han, my remnants of Princess Leia, who made it onto the wedding cake. That was the only nod that day was allowed to Star Wars.
Getting onto the cake is a pretty big deal in my book.
People were groaning when they saw it, but they let me get away with it. That was pretty good.
Actually, there's something you said about not knowing the names. I can remember having a picture of the two droids, and there was no, I don't know what it was. It might have been a T-shirt or pajamas or goodness knows what, or a poster, but it didn't have the names, and we didn't know the names of the characters for age. Apart from we had no idea who they were, what the names were, because now, of course, you couldn't avoid anything. But those days, unless you had a magazine or a comic, you just didn't. You remember seeing all the. I remember just calling them shiny robots until we actually saw them on the pegs, which was probably several years later, because the figures weren't coming out quickly.
Well, that jogs a memory of me. I mean, my auntie. I mean, she had a picture of 3PO and R2. In Tatooine, the kind of iconic one where they just stood in the desert, and I think it came from looking, something daft like that, which had no interest to me at all, but. There it was on the wall, and it was that other connection, right? I've seen these, but I probably didn't quite work out, what it was. But once that connection was made, that's 3PO, that's R2. Look on the back of the card. Oh, there's another 12 to collect, another 10 to collect. I've got two of them. I need these two, plus the other 8, and it was the start of a slippery slope into collecting. And yeah, just halcyon days, really. I was really grateful when someone bought me by mistake a Claro soap, the which you had your kind of showcase a few months ago. You talked about the soaps, and I just kind of chipped in there. Says brilliant, well done, because to me, I think that was my first C3PO, that soap. So we had to make do. I didn't have him, but I had the R2. So the soap version stood in for him until I realised, playing him in the bath that. He didn't come out of the bath in the same condition that R2D2 came in, although he lost his sticker in the bath. But just mad little things like that, just had to kind of make do, didn't you, really? Because they were sort of scarce items and so demand. So you just kind of made do what you got and, let your imagination take on from there, really.
Did you have the comics, Lee?
Do you know what? And I've dug it out tonight. The closest I came to comics, and it is one of my treasured possessions, and it might even be the earliest thing that I got. I've got the Marvel Annual #1. I think it's Stan Lee one, where the first half of it's black and white, and then it kicks into colour. I had that, and the reason I really like that is I scrawled my name in it, just Lee, in like red and blue crayon, and I must have been 4 when I did it. And the fact that survives, a little link back to that kind of lost age. I've got a 3-year-old son now, and he's just learning to write his name. So, I must have been much older when I got that. But the comics, other than that, no. But that album went absolutely everywhere with me. That was complete and utterly. I remember I draw, strips out of it and failing miserably because I can't draw for toffee. But no, comics. No.
But you talk about making do and stuff. I mean, I used to all the time. You'd maybe have a picture of something to make do with, but I mean, I don't know about you guys, but I mean, we weren't like rich, and my dad or mum wouldn't have been buying us toys outside of birthdays and Christmas, so you didn't have like, I don't know, I mean, you might have the occasional uncle or something who might buy us some, but we didn't have any of that, so we had to wait 6 months to a year to get something else. I don't know if it was the same with you, really. I mean, it wasn't a everyday occurrence. Nowadays some parents are you go, oh, I'll buy him some toys, and you buy him toys all through the year. We had to wait, didn't we? I mean,
well, also you got today, the Amazon, next day delivery, so it's there before you've even tapped the button, really. But I mean, you're talking about mate do, and another memory's come back to me. And this, if anyone's listening to this who knows me, yeah, I was that poor, I think, as a kid. My first X-wing was a black plimsoll. He got stuck in there, I think, with Luke Skywalker, the farm boy, and he got whizzed around the house in that. And I think Darth Vader was in the other one, the other plimsoll TIE fighter.
Did you add anything to it? Did you add any wings to it? Or was just
I don't think I was that advanced at that point. So, start cutting. In fact, Mum won't let me anywhere near scissors. So no,
yeah.
It was just a shoe, and I was kind of flying around it. He might have been a land speeder as well. Kind of the ubiquitous shoe-stroke vehicle going on. He just filled in everything. He had my little plimsolls for football, and put my Star Wars toys in.
It's not a million miles away from the shape of such an X-wing fighter. Long.
Or a land speeder. You've got that curved edge, haven't you? So
Yeah, exactly.
I was pretty ahead of the curve, I suppose. There with that. But
It's ringing so many bells with me. I can remember doing. I don't know whether it was with plimsolls, but you'd press so many household objects into use, wouldn't you? As bits of Death Star and spaceships and all sorts. I tell you what, like you say, Pete, we didn't have all the toys in one go. You had to wait and you had to save for them, and you got them in bits and pieces. But boy, I think our imagination's made up for it.
This thing about modern toys now, I mean, little lad now, and you can press a button, the lights flash and all that, and it's all he's in Playmobil space and all that, but the imagination's taken out of him. My lightsaber was the inside of a roll of tin foil, that kind of cardboard insert there, and that was good enough. I was just hitting things with it, and hitting my mum and hitting my sister and making the noise and hitting my mates. That was all I needed. That was absolutely all I needed. The master replica props are absolutely amazing. The technology there, what they can do. But any day, I pick up a little kind of a roll of cardboard. In my head, that little sound's going off again. The zoom zoom, and that was that innocent childhood. And it was absolutely lovely. I won't change anything with that.
To be fair, I still do that today. Every time you finish a roll of wrapping paper.
There you go.
That's it. Lightsaber.
Well, I'm away from this, I'm a teacher, and I actually teach with a flick out lightsaber. So yeah, I'm pretty weird in the school. They think this guy's a weirdo, but we're dancing on my lightsaber in my class. But I use it to kind of to point things on the board, and it never leaves you. That's it. This thing has never ever left me, and probably unhealthy.
Do the kids even know what's going on when you do that? Do they think of what the hell's that, or do they just think it's some kind of like space thing?
No, they do know. Yeah, they do. I think they're pretty clued up on it, aren't they? You get a few geeks who start out Star Wars when they're 11, like, son, I've been doing this for 40 years, mate, jog on. No. Yeah, again, little simple things, I think, are the best. And that's the beauty of the toys we had as a kid. They were simple. They made that rasping, horrible, sound when you press the button, the laser sound that was the same on every single ship that you had. If you had to look at ships, but that was enough. That was absolutely cool. It's what you needed. And there's another kind of childhood memory here, and it kind of leads into what we're going to talk about later, I think. I was taken to a place called Alpha Toys in the Manchester Arndale, and it was a rival of Zodiac, and I was taken by my mate's gran or nana, and I didn't realise this till later on. They were devout Jehovah's Witnesses. So I wanted a walrus man that day, but apparently it was abomination against God's creation and stuff. So she refused to buy me a walrus man. So I ended up with R5D4, and I thought it's the best. It's still today my favourite figure. I think R5D4.
Oh, Rich will be pleased to hear that.
Yeah, I mean, that's it. Every time I hear him say that, I've got a massive collection, but I've still got that same one, from that time, probably about 79. That second wave came out, weren't it? Yeah, just that little kind of twist on the R2 thing I thought was really good, and I think the design of it was really, really cool. And what did he get? A minute and a half on the screen time, but it was just so playable as well. It could be anything really. R5D4, you could throw him in any situation. It could be a goodie, it could be a baddie. He was just a really cool little toy. So I think he's the one, my favourite from there. But it was on that same trip that I first fell in love with the Death Star, the Palatoy Death Star.
Oh yeah, now you're talking.
Well, I never got it until about 10 years ago. This is this unrequited love it was for 40 years. But I remember it because there was that new carpet smell. You kind of walk in a place and they've laid new carpet. It must have been really new, this shop. So every time I smell that new carpet smell, I'm kind of taken back to this little time. And the Palatoy Death Star was probably on the highest shelf in the shop. Now, if you're about 4, it could be about 6 foot up. But to me, it was about 100 foot up. I just couldn't touch it. I couldn't get it. It's kind of metaphorically out of reach, and also from our price range too as a family. So it was about 30 quid, wasn't it, when it came out? It was quite expensive. Did you know the price what it was?
It wasn't cheap. I remember that because I had the same thing. I desperately wanted that, and I was told, no, too expensive. It's just cardboard. I'm not paying that much for you. And I wanted nothing else for about 2 years. Eventually, I was lucky enough to have one for birthday or for Christmas. But wow. before that, my dad had made one. He'd got some bits of wood. He got some 3 circular bits of wood, and he'd put it together 3 different levels, and the trash compactor, and all sorts. It was really, really good work of art. And looking back, I was an ungrateful little bugger because I liked this and I played with it, but I still wanted the the proper Palatoy one.
Any pictures that survive?
No, there isn't. No. It was great. Hats off to my dad. He really did a good job with it. But as I say, it was second best to the Palatoy one. It was again. It must have been like yourself. Something about the graphics and the size of it and the playability. You just saw a picture of it and you knew you wanted it, didn't you?
That's it. It was everything I ever wanted as a kid. I think because it was that split level thing. And I remember my auntie, she had a kind of a doll's house. And they had to make do for my Death Star, this doll's house with like chintzy cushions in it and stuff like that, and it was clearly never the same. So to know it was out there, and putting it on Christmas lists and all that, but to be fair, this was late 70s, early 80s, and unemployment was through the roof, and there was no way that was ever going to arrive me under the tree at Christmas. So it never did, but it never ever left me that image of it. It looked so cool, and I always wanted to hunt one down, and when you kind of get out of collecting, it was still for me a big memory and a box that if you ever got back into collecting, which clearly I did, later in life, it was something I wanted to put right because I never touched one until 10 years ago. I never got anywhere near one, so imagine my delight when it finally came through the post off eBay, and I can go waiting up all night for it. 50 quid I pay for it for a loose one, no plastic bits, no gunner's chair or clearly no canopy and no clips either. But even just setting it up and the cardboard and the graphics and the way it all fits, it's a work of art. It is. I think it's a genuine kind of work of art, the way it all fits together.
It really is, yeah. The design quality is absolutely brilliant. Yeah. Whoever sat down and thought that through, it's absolute genius. Best thing in the action figure line, in my opinion.
No arguments from me. Absolutely no arguments from me at all. So I'd love to know, how it was actually put together, and I've seen a few Bob Breakin talks, on YouTube, and he talks about the design process it went through with. I think they had a version of it, and then it got sent back, and obviously the Kenner Death Star they didn't have the plastic to make. That's the case with this one. But I'd love to know who the guy who sat down and drew it all, because it must have been all hand drawn. The whole lot of it must have been somebody with a draftsman with a pen and inks, and that's a lot of work went into that, and that's off to the fella. I think 40 years later we still try to emulate. Certainly, try to emulate his work to that standard. Amazing fella, whoever he was.
Yeah, can't agree more. So your Death Star, have you been got the bits for it? Have you been able to complete it since?
I've got 3 of the clips. I've got the gunner's chair. Got the X-wing guns. The canopy. No. I think at the minute the canopy is going for 100 plus, isn't it? At the minute, I think on the market.
They do come up from time to time, but they're very sought after.
And it's a big commitment for that, and there's other things that I probably want. I think a bit more yet. Some more vehicles I want to finish off. But my kind of philosophy is if it displays really well, I'm happy with that. That's it. I think these toys are 40 years old and they're designed to be played with. So if it's got the odd scuff, I'm not too fussed over it. So the fact that this is still missing that kind of key piece at the top, I'll get it one day. I'm sure I will get it one day. But I don't really want to be paying at the minute, 150 quid for it, which, I mean, I could put that towards, something better at the minute and me collecting,
Yeah, absolutely. As you say, if you've been after one of these for 40 years, then another year or two ain't going to make much difference, is it?
You're right. Yeah, that's it. I mean, I think they are getting scarcer, but they do appear. So clearly they are out there. I think we've got aware now of the repro market. I think there's a market to get these reproduced. And it's probably quite easy to do, really, to reproduce these. Although I'm not seeing many of them, but if you've got kind of access to a vacuum former, I'm sure people are doing them out there. Obviously, that yellow tint on it now, they're all kind of broken, brittle, and discoloured. I think they'd be pretty easy to spot if they ever did come available, these in a repro ones.
Yeah, the repros are out there, but I think there are tells that you can spot them. So yeah, can't beat the real thing.
I've had half of the mind just for to put an X-wing canopy over it. I think that's kind of the roughly the same kind of dimensions as a kind of a make do thing for the time being. But I'm in no rush to get that bit. It looks great as it is, and I'll keep waiting on that one. I think we wait for
here.
Like I say, a few more weeks won't do many harm.
These things do come up. I mean, they do. Yeah, you just got to be, like I said, patience is especially in collecting. If you're prepared to wait, I mean, whenever you see these people, they're desperate to get all the stuff, and I can understand it to some point. But when they're desperate and they'll take anything, and they will go repro because they just can't wait. They must have it now, and then you see them sell it 2 weeks later because they just can't be arsed. They don't love it. But I'm sure it can. To be fair, maybe someone out there has got one that might want to help you out. You never know.
Maybe, yeah. I mean, it's a good time to to come forward if you are. We can maybe strike a little deal somewhere, and you might receive something in the post. Who knows? That's never got made, but we might talk about later.
You never know your luck.
Yeah, that's it. Who knows? So yeah, feel free, come forward and help a fellow collector out to fulfill his cardboard fetish, I suppose.
But what's your collecting journey then? So you were a kid, you wanted toys, and then when did you kind of, what took over? I'm assuming you're going to say football, girls, and beer.
It was girls, football. It was a well-trodden path, isn't it? I mean, I delved into, I think, reading fantasy books for a bit as a kid, like the old Lone Wolf, Joe Diva things, and kind of choose your own adventure.
Yeah, fighting fantasy game books.
Yeah, I got into it as a teenager a little bit, there's no shame in that. It was a good gateway to reading. But then, after Jedi came out, I think that my last memory, I mean, having gone through Empire and collecting pretty much all the figures from that, my last memory of seeing anything from Jedi, and I was collecting heavily for Jedi as well, but I did see on the Salford Market a trial logo, Luke Skywalker with his Stormtrooper gear on, and it's about, 50p. And you look back, you're thinking, there's nothing you could do, is it? But it just shows you that no one ever would give up by that point. It was not in people's toy baskets, I suppose. People have got things like Transformers and He-Man, and thank God I never got into them things. I never saw the point in anything like that. I thought it was pretty rubbish, all this stuff. Never got into it. Action Force, as a kid, I played a bit of Action Force and a bit of Action Man, but by the time I was moving on from toys, it was football, it was music. And just kind of hanging out with your mates really in the park and being a bit daft. But getting back into it, I was a young dad. Well, still am a young dad, I suppose. I've got a boy who's 27 now, so I was a dad at 19. So he was born in 93. All my Star Wars figures were still, knocking around in my mum's house. So by the time he could walk and talk, we was watching the VHSs of the films, and he would literally sit through them and he'd latch them up there. Matthew, he loved them. And then 96, the special editions broke, didn't they? We got the special editions back in the cinemas. So from there, he was heavily into Power of Force 2. And I suppose I was too, but I was happily collecting with him because we could get on the floor and, play like I was playing as a kid. It was a great little time again. And we still got a fair few of them, between the two of us, and all at my house, these toys. But it was then I thought, right, well, I've got my figures here. I'm going to try and finish the collection. I'm going to try and finish the 96. And so I set out doing that. And it took me I probably had from childhood maybe about half of them that I started out with as a kid. I'd lost all the weapons. So it was a case of picking them up. And we were pretty lucky in the 90s in Manchester because we had a few emporiums. There's one called the Colosseum, which is gone now. It's a block of flats, I believe, in town. The building's still the same. But there's a little stall in there, and they had a little deal going with the owner, a guy called Sean. I think he's still knocking around toy fairs. So I got on the Never Never, on what do you call it?
Yeah, the hire purchase.
I purchased, but a paid plan. Let's say that a paid plan. I got a few of my last 17 there, so I got Barada, got Yak, a Manaman EV99. Some of the desirable, but I never paid more than 50 quid for them. Never did. So clearly the prices were going up then. But looking back, they were good buys at 50 quid. I think Barada's probably not a great deal over that in a minute. The rest of them, now the prices are sky high. So
Good time to be getting your pop-up R2 and your Yak face and things, wasn't it?
Well, you know what? I might say a dirty word here. I did buy a pop-up R2D2. It was the last one of my run to get. And this is before any kind of rules and regulations, kind of the self-governing, I think, on, but groups like Echo, because this was about 98, I got my Pop R2. And it's got a Repro lightsaber. It's there, the Repro lightsaber. I know, but it's been there for, 20 years now. And I've clearly marked it. I've put a bit of paint on the end. It's a bit of junk in it, clearly, but who knew at the time? I don't think I certainly wasn't educated as I am now on buying these things, but I think it just tells me a bit of a story, really. What was collecting in the past. So it's the only thing that's ever got through me, I think, with regards to Repro is that. And
we've all been there. Same as with the Death Star canopy. One day.
Yeah, that's what second-hand junk shops are for. Them kind of foraging boxes where you can hunt through, hoping you find that bit of gold, and I never do. But one day, you might just come across a bit of luck, and there it is, and you put it in, and it's complete your set, but. £200 for that. I think that is nuts. I'm hoping these prices do, self-regulate and come down, but you're not better than me on that. Are they showing any signs of coming down, these lightsabers?
No. Not at the moment.
No.
No, sadly not. It seems the last 17 at the moment is, especially the Yak face, the usual ones just seem to be, they're not climbing, but they're not coming down. There seems to be an accepted price, isn't there? Yak faces, if it's a reasonable quality, I think 200 plus. If it's a bit knackered, 180. If it's absolutely mint condition with a decent weapon, 250, 300. Just depends time of day. But those aren't coming down at all, which is bizarre, really. Because
third category there, he's been well looked after. Knowing back from the 90s, he's barely been. He's just on the on the collecting shelf. He's not been touched. So he's a good one. But he's going nowhere. This is something you one day hopefully pass on to your kids, and unless you need any kind of money very quickly, which hopefully we never have to do. But it's a horrible figure. I really don't like it for what it is.
I did see a beta Yak once in Belgium when we were over there. It was amazing. I was almost going to buy it. The guy wanted a little bit too much, and he wanted like 50 quid. It's like, oh, come on, that was just it was yellowed, it was beaten, there was loads of chips. It was real proper beta, but 50 quid for a beta. Thinking,
50 quid for the beta. Well, that's probably someone else's, a full on the money of easy party. You probably could have sold that later on if you'd have bounced it on for me.
Do your kids have any interest in your Star Wars collection, or they just look at you in a weird way?
My eldest Matthew, he's 27 now, and he's in a kind of cool way, less he's more understated than I am, and he's got a massive fascination with the films, and we always get together and talking about when we see him, and he's into slightly my collection. My daughter, no, I'm uncool dad with my 11-year-old daughter when it comes to Star Wars collecting, and my 3-year-old son, they've got complete ends of the spectrum here. He's the other day he was delighted in bed. He said, "Dad, let's watch Star Wars." So we did, and he got scared by the Jawas. So I suppose his progress there from being scared by Vader. He's a bit tougher than I was, but I'm not too sure really. What the threat to him was. But no, if they find their own way into it, the other two, brilliant. But they've got other interest, haven't they? And do I want them to? It was our thing as kids. It was our 1970s little kind of world, really. So I'm not entirely too sure that I'd want them to. But when the time comes and it's theirs, the collection's theirs. You can do what you want with it. I do have the ambition of putting together, hopefully, 2 more loose runs. For one for each of my kids to kind of, there you go. Well, that's greedy, isn't it? But I know there's people worse than me on there who's probably got 5 or 6 loose runs, but maybe even more. But that's for the future.
What's your vehicles and ship collection like? Have you are you more of a figure collector, or have you got are you trying to get every ship and every play set?
It's and I don't care about the condition too much. I want them. It's like a Veruca Salt here, don't I want the world, but I've always wanted the ambition of every toy that was produced in that run. I'd like an example of, and I'm not a million miles away from it, really. I don't think. So I've got the basic ships, your Falcon, the X-wings, TIE fighters. I've got all the TIE fighter varieties there. Snowspeeder. I'm only kind of missing now when it gets to the higher end stuff like the Sandcrawler. I've got the cardboard version of the Sandcrawler, but I haven't got the remote control version of it. I'm missing the Imperial Shuttle, which is definitely on my list. I just think it's a cool ship, and I look forward to the day where I can kind of line my figures up next to it and recreate that scene where the Emperor's coming up with the Death Star. And the Skiff, which that was late in the run, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And I have got. Didn't manage to get years ago car boot sale kind of thing, and this was a complete chance. I got an A-wing. I picked up an A-wing, and that was about 70 quid loose, but I got it. I went in for it and got it, and it's there, but it looks a bit weird because it's that late run thing, and it's not got them late run editions like I've just said there, the skiff next to it and stuff like that. But it's a lovely little ship, and I just need a loose A-wing pilot to stand next to it because I like mine to be on display. I'm not a massive box collector. In fact, I've got very few boxed vehicles. I like them on display, so they could be just dive in and play them all over again. I think that's the beauty of it, really. They look so cool when they stood up in little diorama kind of sets, and I never get bored looking at me Probot turret set. I think that's an amazing little piece.
Yeah, I can't do boxes. I mean, I appreciate a box collection, but for me, I've got to be able to hold it. If it's in a box, it's got to be open so I can get it out. And if I can put it back in again if I want to, but it's got to be. I've got to fondle it. I've got to play with it for 5 seconds. I can't be doing a box in a box.
These are aren't they? These are things that they almost invite you to come and touch them and kind of move their arms around and point a gun at somebody, and that's what it's all about. And but again, I really do think it's an amazing thing that people are buying them boxed and mint and stuff, because I think they are kind of mini works of art that they are. So we do need preserving in the mint and pristine conditions. And if you've got the thousands of pounds to spend on these things, fair play to you. Absolutely incredible, and just look after them, because there's not many of them left these days. And I think that's something that we'll look back in generations, and these are going to be true collections that will be passed on somewhere and archived, hopefully. But at the other end of the scale where I'm at, and I think you said it yourself there, you like playing with the toys. Let's make that clear. I don't play my toys. I don't sit on the floor anymore and do that. But look at them and appreciating them. They were billions of them made, weren't they? So it's not as though they're going to run out them ones. I don't think. So yeah, put them, display them, enjoy them. That's my philosophy with that.
Tell you what about these ships and stuff is how solid they still are. Now I've got a Millennium Falcon. I bought one. I haven't actually got a really good one, but I thought it's not bad. I got for like a tenner, a car boot sale. I thought that'll do. I'll find the parts eventually. So I thought, what, I'll save them and get a really nice one, and my nephew's coming down and some other cousins coming around. I'll let them play with it, and they absolutely threw it around the garden. They played football with it. They made it fly down the stairs. I thought, if it breaks, not a big deal. There's not much. Completely survived, absolutely fine. About 2 days ago, it fell off my cabinet onto a very hard desk, and it survived, and not a single chip off it.
Even the door struts, even the
Well, those weren't attached. They were like in underneath the smuggler's hatch, but they all survived, and nothing broke off. I thought, how the hell is that survived? It survived like 4 kids kicking the crap out of it. It's been thrown downstairs, it's been thrown around the garden, and it's still not cracked, broken, or anything. I think it isn't. Don't you tell me a toy can take that abuse.
She may not look like much, but she's got it where it counts.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean. Yeah, there's plenty of degradation on the plastic, but it's survived kids. So I thought, well, I'm gonna keep it. I'm going to put it together. The only thing I'm missing is the usual thing, the training ball and arm. But it's fine. It's absolutely fine. It's survived all that abuse and 40 years. It's still going to the right. I'm keeping it.
So the quality of them, isn't it? You know, these things, all they're mass produced, but they were well put together things. And, you know, I think the only one I've ever really broke is the Vader's Star Destroyer. The legs on that are a bit terrible, you know, badly designed. He kind of pushed that and I fall over and crack it. What he did, but I agree. You said there about like degradation and stuff. I don't mind a bit of yellowing on a few things either. I think that's inevitable now. You know, it doesn't. It just shows that kind of the quality. The age of these things. I really don't mind that at all. I mean, anyone that kind of, you know, whitens things. You know, what are you doing that for? You know, give it a rest. Don't stick it. What's that solution?
Oh,
yeah.
Oh, goodness, no. Bleach and all sorts. It's horrible, but.
Bit of wearing, bit of yellowing, it all adds character, doesn't it? All adds to the history of the piece.
That's the word.
Well, especially a Falcon. A Falcon is the fine wine, isn't it, of the Star Wars collecting world? Because the more battered and yellow and nasty it looks more like the Millennium Falcon. It really does, and it looks like it's been in space. And it's been wrecked. It's had things blasted at it. I mean, I don't think you can get better than a Falcon for age and degradation. I think people who want a glowing white one are kind of missing the point somewhat. I mean, you know, it wasn't shiny in the main films. It was wrecked.
Yeah.
You know,
yeah.
So Chewbacca's greasy paws all over it as well.
Well, you can fit Chewbacca in. It never fitted in so well, did it, Chewbacca? I mean, bit of a snug fit for Chewbacca in that cockpit, but what a great toy to design. I mean, the engineering that went into that and the thinking went behind it. This is a brilliant toy. You know, it's a spaceship and it's a playset in one, and just so much you could do with it. Just an amazing piece. That really is good. Probably my favourite vehicle.
And not only that, I mean, they reissued it in the newer line. You know, it was pretty much the same mold. I think they did it twice, I think, and then they released a couple of new versions. But pretty much, I mean, that design was strong and got redone.
My eldest Matt I referred to. We got the Millennium Falcon about '96 when it came out, and the only difference they put a few extra sounds on it. That was it. A few different engine sounds. Other than that, it was a different colour plastic, but same mould, same same classic design, same joy that the kid got that I got. You know, the lad. So you know, why change it? It's a timeless classic.
Right, reinvent the wheel, as I say. Right, should we get on to why we really wanted to talk to you? Not as if we didn't want to talk to you anyway. Should we get on to your little pet project?
Yeah.
Give us a little bit of insight into this.
Okay, well, I mean, as I said before, it goes back to that day when I was still looking at the Palatoy Death Star and always wanting it. And when that Death Star finally arrived about 10 years ago, and being blown away by the quality and the craftsmanship behind it, it just made me that kind of more angry. Angry is the wrong word to use. I was disappointed that they never followed it up with another playset. And it just, you know, it was screaming, that Bespin, Cloud City environment was screaming for somebody to grab hold of that and do something with back in the day, and it never got done. I mean, when I saw the Sears one, I think I bought the Steve Sansweet Collector's Guide back in the 90s. And I saw that, I thought, what a load of rubbish. You know, like kind of flimsy cardboard, paper effect, wasn't it, really? And, I mean, I haven't got that and I don't really want it, really, but I suppose I'll have to get it. But I just thought this could have been so much better. So since then, it's been a bit of a kind of labour of love or a passion project to make something that I think Palatoy might have done if they'd have carried on, you know, producing toys to that standard of a Death Star. So, I take it some people have seen, you know, online. There's been pictures of it bouncing around the box I've kind of mocked up and a few slides from.
Yeah, no. What surprised me, Lee, is quite how long you've been working on this. Because I was doing a little bit of homework, doing a search on some of the Echo groups, and I found posts of yours going back to, I think it's 2017.
Yeah.
Where you got an early version, an early mock-up, and I mean, even then, that's fantastic. I think that first version was very similar to the Death Star, wasn't it? I think you'd used the templates or used the pieces of the Death Star as templates to create this Bespin world. That
was it. So I should say here, no Death Stars were harmed in the making of this project. Nothing ever got damaged. What I did do, I drew around on cardboard the Death Star as a template, like you say, and I cut them out. And I went online and I've found lots of images that I could use. But the main thing I had to kind of, get to make this the standard that I wanted it to look like it would have been made in the 1980 when the film came out, Empire, the greatest film of all time. So that one you're talking about, that was a good project. It was a good attempt at it, I think, but it was probably just too big to make a few of really well and get out in the post, because as soon as I put it up there, which is like my box ticks, I've done it now. It was like a whole people were just kind of flocking on. Can I buy one? Can I buy one? How much and stuff. So it got a bit out of hand. So I kind of retracted from making those things and just kind of and left it. I did sell a couple. I don't know if you know Jez Davis in Blackpool. He's got a shop in Blackpool. Lovely guy. He bought one and he was like, "It was amazing when I took it down there." Tim was like, "This is what it should have been." And so there was clearly a market for it, and I mustn't have been too far off. But I just felt that Death Star version was too big. I mean, if you look at the size of your Death Star you got there, you fold it all up and flat pack it. I think it's about £12 a post without a box, so that was a bit prohibitive, and so I didn't go any further. But then I saw on a website that Palitoy had produced a Action Force HQ, and I thought that because they had that idea, didn't they, Palitoy, kind of recycling toys and just modifying little bits and changing them at different toy lines. So I thought, well, maybe this was kind of in the mind to do a Bespin playset, the Action Force version of it. So I bought one online about 6 months ago. I paid about 45 quid for a beaten Palitoy Action Force playset. I did the same routine. I kind of drew round it and scored it all out and cut it all out. And then it was a case of, right, if I'm going to do this properly now, I want to make this as best I can do. So I went back online and I found scans that I could use. We'll maybe talk about some of the scans in a bit that I've used. But I've also incorporated bits of the Action Force HQ into this. And it works a treat, I think. I've just kind of took little snippets of artwork here and put them there and reconfigured things and twisted things around a little bit. And I'm looking at a version now in my bedroom, and it does look. I mean, I'm pretty biased, obviously, but it does look pretty good. So and feedback so far when it's been, I won't say advertised it. I put it on. I think I put it on Echo Modern because of the rules on Echo, Echo Vintage, and it was just incredible. People were all over it, and it got put on something called Smuggler's Run or Smuggler's Den, and it did lots of great feedback on there. It made it onto Twitter as well, which was quite nice. And so clearly people do like it. For a bit of cardboard, it's a pretty good job. So it's scratched that itch that I've always wanted to do, but I think it could be a little bit better. So at the minute I've got a mate of mine at work who's laser cutting a template for me, which I can hopefully get produced once the lockdown's over. Get them laser cut the templates, and from there on in, hopefully it should all be. I'd like it to be as close to the standard Palitoy would have done. I think it's got to do it justice. That amazing toy that they made of a Death Star. I'd like mine to be as close as possible to that and the production standards of it. So
when it was shown a couple of months ago on Echo Modern, I thought it's something that we had to cover on the podcast. And I think you've done an absolutely cracking job with it. It feels like something that naturally should belong in the Palitoy line. As you say, there's a natural process of evolution, of reusing parts and playsets. And that Action Force headquarters playset, that borrows a lot from the Palitoy Death Star, doesn't it? It uses the same basic structure, the same clips. Trash chute was reused. You've taken it one stage further with the Bespin set. Just like the Palitoy Death Star, you've put so much care and attention into it. Thinking it through, you've got just about every room in there. From Bespin in the movies. Just looking at some of the photos here, I can see the torture chamber, which I particularly love because, again, on the principle of reusing things, you've got Han in the torture rack and you've reused the gunner's seat from the Millennium Falcon with the roof upside down. And I think that's a genius reuse of that particular piece of equipment. That works so well. You've got the furnace, the conveyor belt, where C-3PO is going down and Chewie rescuing him from the Ugnaughts. We've got various corridors. You've got the different kinds of corridors in Cloud City as well. You've got the white corridors where you get the lovely orange sky seen through behind, and you've got some cloud cars swooping past the windows. You've got the sort of red areas, the areas with the red walls, similar to I think outside the carbon freezing chamber where Vader's having a chat with Boba Fett in one scene. You've got the carbon freezing chamber itself on 2 levels. So there's an area where Han Solo can drop down and then presumably be replaced with a carbonite figure that comes back up through the floor. You've got the gantry where Luke fights Vader and the pit underneath. As I say, it's done so well. And just like on the Palatoy Death Star, I can see you being able to play through this, to move your action figures from room to room, scene to scene, and just really live out the whole of the Bespin scenes. I think it's genius, mate.
That's really kind of you to say so. Do you recognise any of the artwork? I mean, I would have thought a lot of the artwork people might have recognised where they've kind of lifted it from, because we've had to kind of
little bits and pieces. There's some, I think, off the kind of Bespin playset, I think. Am I right? You're
right, yeah. So the gantry is there's a set of ladders on the Sears Kenner version of it. So I've lifted the ladders off that. That's the gantry. The window you talked about before, that kind of orangey scene, that's off the back of Cloud Car, die-cut car back.
There's a stormtrooper in one of the rooms, and he's definitely off the Palatoy Death Star.
There you go.
Cradling his blaster across his chest. Recognise that one.
And what I love about the what we say there about the Death Star is them little extra figures that you got, but you might have noticed as well, I've kind of inserted Lobot looking through a door. I don't know if you've noticed him.
Just behind the gunner's chair, isn't it?
Yeah, so little... Yeah, I'll send you a picture later on, lads, but he's lifted off his Empire Strikes Back carrier case. There's a little image of him there, so I mean, just little things that just kind of looking for vintage illustrations that Kenner would have done or Palatoy would have done.
Yeah, fantastic. There's a view screen somewhere, isn't there, with the bounty hunters on it?
That's my lunchbox, I think.
Yeah. And then your favourite and Richard's, we got R5D4 in the junk room.
Yeah, Letraset to thank for that. So there's a Letraset influence in that, which is great. There's a few more. There's a Gonk droid from Letraset as well in there. So them Letraset illustrations, they're amazing too. That kind of little segue into something else. But I've printed some of them out and just kind of stuck my figures, in front of them. It's so good, them illustrations. You want a cheap diorama, that is a great little thing you can put your figures in front of. But most of it, I mean, if you look at I'm pointing at it as if you're in the room with me, but the droid smelting room where you've got IG-8 leant against the wall, as he is in the film.
Yeah,
he's there. He's off a carrier case. But the statue, the furnace, that's off the Action Force playset, and there's a room where you've got, I think, a soldier, and he's kind of in an ammunition dump. I just took him out of it, made it into that, and it seemed to work really well. And
it does. The fact that you're using vintage illustrations, I mean, the vintage artwork has a style all of its own, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And I think that really adds to the feel of the playset, rather than using, it would have been so easy to use photography and movie stills and put that in the walls, but it wouldn't have been the same. Wouldn't have the same 70s aesthetic or 80s.
I'd been betraying that kind of, that idea I've had since seeing that first Death Star back in, 78 and wishing they'd made this version of it. And so it had to be as if it was illustrated. And I literally, if you give me a pencil, I'll break it when I put it on the paper. I can't draw anything. I'm rubbish at it. But I've got a bit of an imagination, and this is the result of it, really. I just want it to be absolutely perfect to the standard that would have got produced. So there's a bit of work left to do in it, I think. Hopefully next year, after lockdown breaks and shops open again and print shops. So if anyone who's good at kind of printing, in the community, I need a box knocking up as well. We certainly need a box if it's going to be kind of moved out, because again, I want it to be as good as it would have been. It's got to be done justice to that original, because it was so good. And I won't settle for anything less than perfection on it. So maybe that's me being, slightly weird. I don't know, but I think it deserves it after 40 years of trying to get it right.
I think the overall aesthetic is probably what intrigued a lot of us when we were kids, which is the aesthetic of Star Wars is that kind of lived-in universe. That's why our imaginations could go on, because everything looked like it was put in your dad's garage. I mean, it just looked like it'd come out of something down the street, the warehouse that you might have gone to get something. So that's why it always appealed. And this is the same sort of thing. It's got that kind of like raw. So I said you've taken images we're familiar with, so you haven't reinvented anything for the sake of it. It does have a charm to it. I think I mean, like you said, probably going to tidy it up, do a few more versions, get it done. But I think people are onto you. I think everyone's gonna want to help and go, you know what? I'll do that bit for you.
Listen, if it's a bit, communal like that, I think I'd be willing to accept, that kind of help, just so long as it gets out there in the best fashion possible. I'm not a greedy man. I'm not interested in money at all. I mean, a little bit will be useful, clearly, but I think this is something that everybody that little would have wanted as a kid, and if it is me to get it out there, I'd be quite honoured, and that I'm the man to have delivered it, to satisfy that craving that people might have had for this length of time, because this should have been made. There's no way around it at all. This should have been made. It's
printed cardboard. I mean, this is it's not like we want to remold plastic. I mean, this is something that can be so easily done and turn into a really nice set, which I think everyone would want to buy it, as long as it's not ridiculous. It's not $4,000. I think it'll be very popular.
I'll be first in the queue for it.
Yeah. Vintage Rebellion Labs.
I've always thought Bespin was a bit shortchanged, wasn't it, in the original line? If you look at the Empire playsets, you've got 2 or 3 playsets for Hoth, and you've got the Dagobah playset, but Bespin, which is where a really large part of the action takes place, it gets nothing. You get that poor quality Sears exclusive, which was really an excuse to sell figures.
Most crucial scene in the entirety of the trilogy.
Ask anybody their favourite scenes, it's probably going to be, I love you, I know that's in the top 10 scenes of the old trilogy. And did it get a nod? Not a chance. It was a wasted opportunity, big time. And the Droid Factory, that strange beast that was released in '78, the Droid Factory. You know what I'm talking about, don't you, lads?
I do indeed. I'm glad you mentioned that. I was going to come on to that.
Well, that's it. There was a lad online who did a version of it. He looked at it and thought, this can be better. So he's turned that into a version of the carbon freezing chamber. And that inspired me to get back into this. I got a cheap version of the droid smelting room. But that hook, the grappling hook, that perfectly holds a Boba Fett Slave One carbonite block. It's amazing. It just sits there in my collection now, a little kind of offshoot from this, a little Bespin scene on its own. Toys that, that if they had a little bit more forethought, they could rather bring that stupid dungeon out, that, the Jabba's dungeon, which was, again, an excuse to sell a few toys. They could have done a better job. They could have made at least the carbon freezing chamber out of that. I'm convinced of it.
Well, again, I mean, we must stick some photos of this up on the social media, but what you've done with this, you've got the basic base plate of the Droid Factory. And as you say, you've got the crane and the hook still in place. But you've then got a printed bit of cardboard which sits over the area of the Droid Factory where all the droid parts are supposed to sit. Right, so you've got a nice flat piece of flooring. You've got a circular cutout in the middle, which is the actual freezing chamber. And then you've cut out some other little bits and pieces, some other stickers with those orange lozenge-shaped details that go on the stairs. And those are put on the playset up the steps. And it just looks brilliant. A few Bespin figures on there. And what a fantastic playset that looks. As you say, rather than the Jabba's dungeon, why on earth didn't they chuck that out?
I should give a shout out to, I've never met the fellow, but it's a guy called Dirk Cassell. I think he came up with the idea first on one of the groups, and he just inspired me to do it. And he said your version's better than mine, which is very kind of him. But it was just a simple thing to do, just changing a little detail there. It's not nothing was broken, nothing's damaged. Its sticker's been applied to plastic; they can just peel off, and it just works perfectly well. And again, it's just filling that gap. If you've got a cabinet there dedicated to Empire Strikes Back, or you've got a shelf, you've got that Bespin there, haven't you? And that's it. That's where that end scene with your father. What a massive gap. And I'm hoping I'm doing that by making things like this and just trying to fill that gap, because clearly people want them.
I don't know if you heard what we said in the last episode when we were talking about this, but isn't it a shame that all these people are doing this repro nonsense, and then they could put their minds to something like this, all that energy and materials being being thrown away because they're just making stuff that isn't real, and they could be doing something like this and go, you know what, that playset wasn't made. Oh, let's have an Endor version of this, and I mean, you could do all sorts of things with cardboard, with bits of plastic and stuff, rather than just churning out stuff that it's already out there.
This is the version. This is what I'm going to go with. It's made in Manchester.
Well, exactly. Yeah, people don't know these places. Americans go, where? Manchester? Never heard of the place.
We are the best city on the planet. What we not talked about there, the background for the carbon freezing chamber. You got to guess where that came from, lads? Any idea?
No, I don't know where that's come from.
Well, I mean, that's it. This is vintage too. It needed a bit of touching up, but Letraset did an Empire Strikes Back transfer set, and it's off that. It was tiny. It kind of, on the original, it kind of segues into the duel, and so I've had to kind of get a snippet of that and just reproduce it a few times. And that's the effect.
That's coming back to me. Yeah, that's in the Dairy Lee bumper transfer set,
that's the one,
I believe.
Yeah.
There we go, the middle segment. Got Hoth on the left and the Space Battle on the right. Genius, mate. Love it.
It's all there. Like breadcrumbs have been left for us through time, and we're just not done with it until someone got bored of a lockdown and did it, and it's me.
Not only vintage, but it's that British design lineage as well.
I think that's it.
I love it.
Yeah, that's a little stamp on it. I'm not getting too nationalistic over it, but yeah, I think it is. It's that Peloton. I mean, the designer Peloton, the logo of it, that red, white, and blue thing. That's lovely. That takes me back every time I see that to my childhood and stuff. Just such a brilliant toy manufacturers and made some of the greatest toys in the world, apart from this, which was the greatest miss, the biggest own goal that they could possibly have done. This would have sold by a bucket load, I'm sure of it. But
I think you're right. So this is going to be a fantastic set. I'm so looking forward to seeing one in the flesh. And you've got a little bit of work to go on it yet, as you say. But any thoughts of doing a Return of the Jedi set? The play sets for Jedi are sadly lacking, really. You've got a wonderful Ewok village. There's nothing really from Tatooine other than Jabba's throne. That's not a play set, is it? You've got the Jabba's dungeon. But beyond that, no play sets. I don't know what they were playing at for Jedi.
Well, yeah, there's a thought. And I think I probably would need somebody to come in and help me here, because I've done a lot of thinking over these things in the past few years, and so I thought, could it ever be made into a Jedi version of it? And if it did, I'd like it to be on the same scale as a Death Star, and that same kind of scale and same template. I think you could maybe do a Jedi world, incorporate Endor, like the bunker, could be somewhere on the Death Star as well, and you could have Jabba's palace somewhere. I think you could probably just about do that on the scale of a Death Star, but you'd have different scenes. The Death Star 2 in Jedi, there's not a great deal that goes on there, is there? Other than the shuttle lands and the duel at the end. There's only 2 real scenes that take place. So you're left then with a bit more space. So I think you could do like an Endor bunker in one section of it, and maybe Jabba's palace, or maybe the Sarlacc pit. Now the Sarlacc pit would work, because out there is again, it's kind of the way I'm thinking. There's that Sarlacc pit game.
That's right, the Parker one.
The Parker one, so you could use that as the Sarlacc, the illustration of that. But then you kind of, I've been looking around and I'm not seeing much really that leaps out. But I'd happily give me advice to anybody who wants to kind of take that on board and what I do. I think what it's got to do, what has been the main problem with trying to make this version here, it's all got to look like it's by the same hand. That's by the same person that's illustrated. Clearly, the Death Star looks like one person has sat down and done the whole playset. And I think mine, Bespin version, just about covers that too. It looks like one person has thought it through and illustrated it. But that's by me taking illustrations from elsewhere and changing them a little bit. I'm not seeing that same level of kind of illustrations out there, or vintage ones out there for Jedi. I mean, there's the letter set ones. I don't think they produced a Jedi one, and if it did, they did do actually, didn't they? There's the one with there's the bunker and the speeder bike. So I mean, that could be used, but there's not a great deal really and it's all a bit cartoony. It all looks
quality of the artwork went a bit downhill, and
it dropped,
and lots and lots of Ewoks.
That's it. I'm glad you're saying that. It does certainly drop the quality of the artwork on them later ones. So that would mean somebody kind of better than me, because as I say, I mean, I can't draw anything. I've just got a bit of imagination and a bit of hopefully a bit of a flair for putting things together. But I think that one will be beyond me. But it's out there. It needs doing, somebody. If this one takes off, we've got to have a trilogy, haven't we? We've got the Death Star, Bespin, and someone's got to do the last one.
There you go. There's a challenge to you, anybody out there listening.
Yeah.
Get on it.
I'm happy to help out anybody.